where does that lead someone to in that discovery process? What financial instruments support that? What wealth frameworks support that? What philosophies support that? What ideologies support that? What principles support that? It's not about you when they feel that way. It's about them. And if you look at this in your own life, what are you judging? What are you making wrong? What are you saying should be different? It's like in my book, Money Tree, I talk about the roots and fruits of poverty and prosperity. You can look and say, you have choices, and these are the choices that you have, and these are the conclusions when you go down through that choice and ask the questions to help them uncover and have self-discovery. So the question is, what questions can you ask to help them discover who they really are, what they really want to do, without the constraint of the environment that they're now in versus the environment that they came from and who they are at their core? Questions are going to be the key, because you can tell stories, which will be great and inspirational, but giving advice before asking the questions behind your own personal story will basically make it your viewpoints, not their viewpoint. So there's the cultural aspect, there's the perspective, and then there's the individuality. And so there's kind of like a melting pot that comes through those different factors, because there's an element of heritage that influences, that there's also, when we look at generational pieces, there's the good and bad. There's the things that we learn that might be limitations, that might be scarcity, that might be belief systems that no longer service. And then there's the part that we learn that might be love, that might be individuality, that might be celebration of where we came from and the good aspects of that. How do you help convey that? Where does that lead someone to in that discovery process? What financial instruments support that? What wealth frameworks support that? What philosophies support that? What ideologies support that? What principles support that? And so what is static and remains true, and what is variable and is really about the individual and their experience? You have your own intellectual property DNA, and that DNA says, here's how you like to create. And so you may enjoy interviewing people or being interviewed. You may enjoy writing, or you may enjoy speaking. You may enjoy doing the same thing and asking the same things on a regular basis to see the difference that people have, or you might want to do something completely new on a regular basis. Like, what you've got to figure out is, how do you show up? What do you stand for, and what do you stand against? That's the first thing. What do you stand for, and what do you stand against? That starts to become part of your intellectual property platform. What questions uniquely help you access the information that's behind the initial piece? Because there's what people will share with you that they're comfortable sharing, because there's a story that we've all created to remain protected and safe and how we want to be identified. So that's what they will share. What won't they share, though? What are they afraid to share? What can you provide an environment where they feel safe enough to share something they might not normally speak that's kind of behind that first layer? And then finally, what happens when you can illuminate and show them things that they've never been able to share because it was a complete blind spot and they didn't even know it was there? But that might be the very thing that was holding them back, or preventing them from being more of who they are. And so you can really start to establish, what are your list of questions? What are your philosophies and framework? And then what do you stand for, and what do you stand against? What makes you unique? Like, what are two things that come together when you're around that don't seem normal? Like, I might be that I'm GQ money Jesus on one side, but a financial nerd on the other. Those don't seem to necessarily go together. Makes it uniquely interesting. So what is uniquely interesting based upon who you are, where you come from, what your perspective is, how you show up? I want you to really start diving and uncovering those pieces. When people come from a place of judgment, it's never about you, it's about something in them. It's merely a projection of something they haven't accepted in themselves. And for them to even see and judge it about you, it's actually a mirror back to them, even though they're completely blind to that. So A, you will be judged. It's part of being human. When people come from scarcity, they are going to have judgment because they want to remain where they're at, and that's their comfort zone. And if they could make other people wrong to feel right, they're going to do that, because that allows them to talk about other people versus be responsible for their own story. It is scary to be responsible for your actions, reactions, and take responsibility for your life, and to admit if there were times where you felt like a victim and you overcame that and became a victor. And what will people say about it? What will people do? Is none of your business if you're going to live a fulfilled life. Is to own your truth, be yourself, and go out there and be a stand for what you believe in and understand what you're standing against. And there's so many people that are walking around every single day carrying around pain. Pain that they've never expressed, pain that they just push down, and pain that has them feeling heavy and disconnected. And the thing is, the people that judge you, like, if you're doing anything extraordinary, you will be judged. If you're doing anything that's out of the ordinary, you'll be judged. If you're doing anything that sheds light into darkness, you'll be judged. If you do anything of consequence, you will be judged. It's just part of the process. If you had no judgment, it's because you're not doing doing anything of consequence. It's because it's not actually helping shift or change or confront in any meaningful way. And people are remaining in their safe zone where they want to stay, because even if it's a hell that they know versus the hell that they don't. And so this is what we have to recognize. Like it's only going to be something you feel defensive about or fearful about if you haven't fully accepted and processed the emotion. If you've accepted it, if you've processed it, and you choose to love all that is, what happened to you, who you were, who you are, and see all of it as part of your journey and your process and your learnings, then ultimately you heal from that, and it becomes something that is a force for good, and it becomes something that propels you forward. If you hide from it, if you're in fear of it, that scarcity becomes a voice in your head that sabotages you, and yet it's the very people that you should care the least about their opinion that starts to govern who you are on a daily basis. That isn't where your power lies. So ultimately, like, I'm here to tell you, you're going to be judged. It is part of the process. There's people that aren't going to like what you do. They're not going to like who you are. And again, I want you to really get clear about and understand this. It's not about you when they feel that way. It's about them. And if you look at this in your own life, what are you judging? What are you making wrong? What are you saying should be different? What are you looking at someone and saying if they only knew? Like, where are you giving away your power and your energy because you're outside of your own self? And what happens when we look internally and when we face that pain with love and compassion and we go through it versus hide from it or go around it, then on the other side, we find this consciousness and connection. And so the bottom line is, like, you're here and you're going to learn your lessons over life. And the lesson that's going to be the most painful is anytime you're hiding or anytime you're running versus accepting and in being empowered. I feel concerned. I feel a bit of fear. Like, that's normal. That's natural. We're human beings. We have emotion. No matter how enlightened I ever feel I am, the next lesson comes and shows me that I'm a man that has the next lesson coming, the next emotion to process. And sometimes, dude, I'll sit there and be like judging the shit out of myself. Like, I should know better. I've written about this. I teach about this. It doesn't make us impervious to going through the experience because we're in dynamic relationships and we keep seeing a different angle and aspect, and there's different consequence, and there's different circumstance, and there's different environments, and there's different stakes. I mean, it's different when you have a kid versus when you don't have a kid. It might be different when you're married than when you're not married. It might be different when a family member dies, or it might be different when you do something that you're disappointed in yourself. Mistakes don't make you less lovable. They just make you human. And if you just recognize the goal is to learn from the mistakes and course correct versus hide from them and be forced to correct, because what we hide from becomes the most apparent thing when people are around us. It becomes the most self-evident thing. We recognize it because it will diminish your energy and your light. You're going to be challenged by people that don't like what you point out, what you say, what you do, to say, is that going to change who you are because of their fears and inadequacies, insecurities, or projections? Or is it going to be one of the ways that you grow that mental muscle, that spiritual muscle? I don't really get my feelings hurt when people are negative about my writing, but sometimes I still do. If you endorse someone like this, how do you have the right to ever give any advice for the rest of your life? And I know that's asinine, but it triggered me a little bit. Like, why is this triggering me? What is it? Like, is it that I don't, like, there's something that I haven't healed from in this, that I haven't forgiven myself for, that I didn't learn from this? Like, those are the times to explore. And like, if you think about the people that you probably listen to the most, I know the people I listen to the most are the ones that feel the most real. They feel so real, and like we're just eavesdropping into their life, and they're not positioning and pretending and wanting us to think they're cool. They're genuinely curious and they're genuinely open. I mean, that might not be the case all the time, but I know that those are the people I tend to resonate with the most. And I just don't know anyone that's out there that said, well, I was born and everything was perfect and I was always able to earn everything and do everything and life was just smooth. Like, nobody made that movie. Nobody gives a shit about that movie. Some of us, we like to talk about our scars more than anything because we can learn from those situations and the behavior that happens. I was just dedicated to, like, how do I improve myself? How do I heal? How do I learn? How do I take responsibility? Like, that's my mantra. How do I take responsibility and how do I learn? And I go, how are my results? Is this what I want? If not, who can I be around that challenges me in a positive way? Where can I go to immerse myself to learn about this? How can I invest in myself, in my emotional intelligence, in my healing, in my skill set? It's a philosophy. And I just recognize, like, no matter how much work I do, I mean, I'm still judging myself recently. I should be further along. So my business, now what? How's this going to go this second time around? You know, like, I have all these things that I have to heal and I have to deal with. And I've done a lot of work to get there, but so it probably will happen. I can get through it a lot quicker. I'm just committed to a bigger story. I'm just committed to enjoying life. I'm just committed to how do I get to a place where contentment isn't a bad word? And growth is also in healing, not just in dollars. Most people don't make the same mistake twice. They make it like 15, 16, 17 times. And in one lifetime, if they learn one lesson, that's not a bad lifetime. A lot of people just struggle because they're defending their actions, because they want to blame others, because they play the role of the victim, because they think it's the world's fault or the economy's fault or their business partner's fault or whatever it is. And they spend their life in that suffering. Having compassion sometimes just comes from talking to the right people. Having that compassion comes from just writing sometimes. We always think other people have it better than us or someone's further along than us. They're just on different lessons. Everyone's got some pain somewhere. Something that they're working on, something that they're learning, something they don't have 100% figured out. We compare our worst to their best. That's where the pain comes from. How do you make her feel safe and special? Those are the questions. And how do you be open about your insecurities so it's not a surprise? And do you have a place where you could be that connected? When I decided to give my whole heart over to her, like life just got immensely better. She felt safer. We were more connected. I looked at my family as one of the greatest accomplishments I've ever had versus just a book that I wrote. Society rewards accolades, awards, exits, dollars. Like they reward that. That's what people want to hear about. That's what people are attracted to. That's what people think about because they think, oh, if I only have that, then I'm somebody, I'm something. We're striving for that because it's been this great life. We check the boxes, life gets better, but we check those boxes and all of a sudden, if there's no one to celebrate it with, who gives? Like when something great happens, I want to tell my wife immediately. When something bad happens, I want her to be there for me immediately. Like that's special. But that takes, you've got to understand you're worthy of that love. You have to be willing to put yourself out there and give your whole heart over to that person. Because if you don't, you'll be tempted by other things. When we hold something back, we look for something else because they can only give to the capacity we're willing to receive. And if we've shut down our capacity to receive, we're limiting their ability to love. And the more we can give love, the more we can give love. The more capacity we have for love, the more we give that. But we have to heal our own concerns about whether we're worthy, whether we're lovable, and you don't have to be perfect to be lovable. You can be lovable just because you're human. If you can start writing down what you love about yourself and then find out everything you haven't loved about yourself and find a way to love those aspects too, you'll increase your capacity to love. If you could find someone outside of a significant other to give unconditional love to, you'll start seeing how conditional your love is and you'll start removing the conditions so you can give more of who you are. These are the ingredients that make for a wonderful life. And it doesn't mean that you don't get hurt sometimes, you don't feel exposed at other times, but our desire and necessity for protection becomes prevention. Prevention of expression, prevention of connection, prevention of emotion, prevention of bliss, because we're so addicted to protection. And that protection sabotages us because we think that if we put ourselves out there and we're exposed, like I always felt, if my wife didn't love me, then I must not be lovable because I've shown her more of who I am than I have any other person on the planet. And because of childhood something and feeling some level of abandonment that I hadn't healed or it was a blind spot, I didn't even recognize I was doing it. So the other thing is I can look back and say, I did the best I could with what I had. Was it great? No. Do I feel bad about some of those things? Yes, but my wife has forgiven me. Let it go and forgive myself and live into the present and a more exciting future than remunerating on the past and all the limitations that comes with it. Hey, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And if you're enjoying these videos, well, there's good news. More where that came from, so go ahead and click through and watch the next video now.